we need to pray. Let's pray. Baba wethu sekhaya ezulwini, namanje ntambama siyakubonga, siletha udumo kuwena, siletha ubukhosi, amandla, kanye nenkazimulo. Konke kungokwakho. Siphamisa udumo siletha kuwo, sicela uNkulunkulu engcwele uba lapho siqalele isifundo, iba yenathi sicathulise, iba nemqondo yethu ebuthakathaka. Sivumele Kristu sicathule size kuwena, uze uduswe udunyiswe kukona konke uKristu mayekuzwe phakathi.
Amen.
Amen.
All right. What is going to happen today? Angiqale ngithi I acknowledge the input engiyitholile from members, both online and our traditional members as they were feeding us during the week. All right. What we're going to do this time, I'm quite excited. We will look at what we did last week. We'll go through it and try to recap. Our recap, I'm afraid this time, last week I said it took a largest chunk of my time, but this one seems to have taken the entire. Why is it so? It is because when we looked at your concerns, kakhulukazi, we noted ukuthi yes, it looks like most members missed our presentation last week. Either they missed it or they misunderstood it. Yes, there we are. I did say, ukuthi, we'll be looking at some objections to the biblical teachings of the sanctuary, even this week. We're continuing with it. And we did not exhaust that last week. Saze kaphezulu. Ake sikhumbuza ukuthi sithethe ngokuthini last week. Sathi the Mosaic Tabernacle was a place where God told his people how they were offending him. And we saw it as a place of restitution as well, in that both the offended and the offending parties, they met together there. That's the tabernacle. And sekushiswa yini lokhu? Cabanga mase sikhuluma phela, sesikhuluma ngemnikelo. The one wonile, wone ngento ethile, wone ngendlela ethile, letha nanku umnikelo. Uletha kubani kumuntu omonile, who is God this way. That's how ngithi we were looking at the tabernacle as a place of restitution, where the offended and the offender are meeting, not with an aim as in court. You said this and you said that. No, not that way, but to re-establish their relationship. And we also concluded last time that being ignorant of this study is like someone who's simply taking away a manual and throwing it away. That no, I don't need the manual. I mean, I don't cook with a manual. I cook on the stove. Bese siyephuka stove. Adinga le manual. Ebimtshela how to operate your stove. So I guess we shouldn't be like that. And we also noted last week that even in our civil law, the ignorance of the law is not an excuse. You can't plead ignorant. I didn't know, mina. We are told it bungazi ukuthi kanti kule ndawo u60 when uyihambela ngo80. Ulithole ithikithi. Yes. So this one is very, very important. That's why I even put red in it. We noted last week ukuthi in the courtyard, I repeat, in the courtyard, there was no gold. Nothing gold was found in the courtyard. Only brass and wood and silver. That's only. No gold. But look at this one. See this one? That is no longer bronze, but brass. I need to correct myself. That is no longer bronze, but brass. But in the courtyard. So that's another innovation esesiyibona ke seyenzeka. Konke kwenzakalani la. So, and we ended last week by a warning from N.S. Haskell, who said, "It is impossible to have the exalted views of Christ's atoning work. It's impossible if the New Testament is studied without the previous knowledge of the deep, blood-stained foundations of the Old Testament Gospels of Moses and the prophets." Uthe Haskell, once wena ufunda iTestament entsha kuphela, uyifunda nayo ngale kokubuyekeza lezi zinto ezibalekile njenge-knowledge yale blood-stained leya mhlatshelo eyenziwa kwi-Tabernacle kaMose. And ibe yisisekelo sevangeli elitholakala kwi-Old Testament nabaprofeti. Then ngeke we understand the New Testament. It's impossible. Now, ukulahleka kwale principle, ungayinaki le warning ka-N.S. Haskell. Soholele ekuthenini uthi ke manje utholakale sekukhona izinto eziningi ezingasa njengoba zazibekiwe. Bukela njengamanje nani. Nansi le ku-1 la, abeka u-2 la, abeka u-3 la. Le mawuyibheka uphondo lolu. But from the source where I got this thing from, it was saying this is the bowl, the lava, i-basin. Ayikho i-basin eneyimpondo, ayikho i-basin enesefo, ayikho i-basin. So inkinga yini? We lost sight of uHaskell ne-warning yakhe. Masibuka ke, this didn't look like bronze, I say. That one doesn't look like bronze to me. I don't know. Bronze, but I don't see bronze here. Number 2, for example. So, having noted a comment by a Jewish scholar this week, who said that the priests did not wash their hands and feet in the basin itself, but used water from the basin instead. Njengoba sibona kwenzeka la number 3. Nansi basin, even though ingeyona brass, but ngithathe i-principle here ukuthi kwakukhiwa amanzi ageze izandla, ayingagezeli la phakathi ngoba ukungcola phela sekusala la phakathi kwi-basin angithi. Yes, that's what I was saying. Now, but we are looking here, ngathi lona uyayigezela khona laphana phakathi. That doesn't sound Jewish to me, because those imithetho ye-cleanliness bebeyilandela to the letter. Ukhumbula ukuthi nje kwakungakwazi nokudla ungakayigezanga izandla. That is cleanliness more than anything. It's not about the law, it's about cleanliness. So, so that's the part. And ngifuna masixoxe ingakho ngithi ke angigalawele kakhulu namhlanje. If failure to heed Haskell's warning resulted in complete distortion not only of the tabernacle but of the religion as a whole. Sekukhona abantu, yes, I'll treat that one next week. These mainline churches that I was reading about, hayi imambana zisahlabela ama-ancestors noKristu naye ukhona khona lapho. And so dealing ngayo next week. Ake sithathe nangu Pastor Brandon. Pastor Brandon is a founder here, Life Path Ministries. Uthi, there are 3 divisions that he sees in the tabernacle. And these 3 divisions represent 3 kinds of worshiper. Lama 3 divisions, uthi yena kukhona a-courtyard, kube khona i-first apartment or the holy place, bese kuba khona the third, the most holy place. Yes, those are 3 divisions akhuluma ngawo. So uthi lama 3 divisions amele amakholwa amathathu ahlukene. Yokuqala ke ikholwa yileli wonke uthi ayenyuka intaba aya kuNkulunkulu. Kodwa kuba khona lawa afana noMose ayenyuka intaba aza ufinyelela esicongweni la kukhona uNkulunkulu khona. All right? Those who go all the way up to the mountain to meet with God, like Moses. That's what he says. Then the second one, uthi laba ukhumbule uMose lesikhathi enyuka akenyuka ngayedwa, wayenyuka kanye nama elders, nama leaders. Yes, nama leaders awu-70 aka-Israel. Hence, sinencwadi okuthiwa i-Septuagint. Nayo 70 people. All right? So, laba benyuka nabo bayithinta kule ntaba beweka umngcele obekelwe any other person baya ngale kwayo benyuka halfway nentaba. Kwaze kuthiwa salani-ke la nina ningaqhubeki naqhubeka nizofa. Uthi-ke those they go halfway up to meet with God, but they end halfway. They don't fully get there. And basically, the rest of us who don't even approach the mountain where God is. That is what he's saying. And yeah, that is what he's saying. So we notice clearly there from his analogy that his understanding of the tabernacle is void of the purpose as stipulated by God himself in Exodus 25, verse 8. Engathi akanalo ulwazi lokuthi eyani tabernacle. Akanayo nhlobo. Useshumayelela nje usesengena epulpitini kena kuthiwa i-exegetical freedom. Wenza ungena kwa homiletics. That he's using his exegetical freedom. We are allowed to say whatever you want to say about but amen. But not in a Bible study. We don't say whatever you like and expect us to say amen. We'll slash you. So when God called upon Pharaoh, this is our observation. I need to put that one clearly. Our observation is that when God called upon Pharaoh to set his people go from Egypt, he stated the purpose for them leaving Egypt to go away. He said, so that they may worship me. Exodus 9, verse 1. Stated the purpose. Let my people go so that they can worship me. Today, religion is no longer so much about worship, but business. Usubona uthi cha, laba abanikela kuthi ithi mnikelo yabo as umuntu ephethe inoti ka-200 rand ngoba ingekho ka-500 rand neka-1,000 rand ngesandla. Afika ithi ubheke usise bese eza-ke nokhumalo eze naye ephethe i-2 rand coin. So it's about business. It's all about how much are you contributing to the church rather than a business of worshiping God. That's what we are noting. At the same time, I like these people. BibleTraining.com if you get their website and type something about the tabernacle, hey, they're beautiful. No, they are not members of my church. They are the what? They are the Baptists. They are the Baptists. But I've said I like their knowledge. I like what they are saying. They say the purpose of God. When I read their something, to me the purpose of God was crystallized when they say, before they started toward the promised land, the children of Israel, God prescribed for Israel in great detail how he desired that they may worship him through a system of offerings centered around animal sacrifices in the tabernacle. Before baphume nje, uNkulunkulu detailed how you are going to do that. And that rang a bell in my mind. So now we said, we understand that at this time, the people of God had forgotten all about their God as to who and how he is to be worshipped, who he is and how he wants to be worshipped. They had forgotten it. They had fallen off, just like Adam and Eve. They fell in the Garden of Eden. Bawa. Bamkhohlwa uNkulunkulu wabo, bakhohlwa nanokuthi ufuna ukukhonzwa kanjani. Yingakho sebabiza manje ebakhipha eGibhithe. And uzokhumbula isikhathi ukuthunyelwa uMose ukuthi uMose ubuze ukuthi ngizothuma ubani ongithumile. Wathi awubatshela ukuthi unginguye enginguye ungithume kini. Yes. I'm talking about him today. So the BibleTraining.com. Okay, but I'm saying here, we notice that it was God's initiative to seek and to save his people, not the people. People did not go after looking for their God. They were satisfied in their state of ignorance, worshipping whatever they wanted to worship at that time. But they were happy with it. And it was this God who went out seeking for his people to restore them back to himself. Verse Isaiah 53, verse 6, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way. IBibleTraining.com le ngikhuluma ngayo lapha, yeah? Bring it back there, continuing to quote from them, they say, and I think their statement was profound to me. I was excited. I actually jumped up on my feet when I read this statement from them. They say, God is holy, and God demands that those who worship him also should be holy. That's profound. Beautiful. Nothing better than that. Yes. You can't worship a holy God when you are not holy. To them, meaning the BibleTraining.com, holiness carries the idea of purity, of separation from sin, and of being different. That's what holiness means to them as they show with these verses. And we think this idea of being unique, uniquely different, and distinguished from among others, it is this idea that people of God have not understood up to now. You see, so we argue so much about the tabernacle, whether it should be studied, whether it's still relevant or not relevant, all of that, because we don't have the concept of being unique, of being distinguished, of being, different from all others. And yet God is calling us not to be like every other person else, but to be different, to be distinguished, to be unique, different. That's what holiness means. So we do believe this separateness is still not understood even today, post Christ's first coming. Sewafika uKristu usezobuya okwesibili, but abantu bakaNkulunkulu abakayi-understand le ndaba yokuba separate. We learn from the creation account. This is us at Revere God Ministries. Yini esifunde kwi-creation account? Ukuthi before Adam and Eve were created, God prepared everything they would need to worship him with. Home, animals, flowers, place, you name it, everything God put it there. And then he created them as now, here you go, worship me. So, what did they have? They only had their God. Nothing more. Because everything was not theirs, it was God's. Same today. We have nothing. Uthi umhlabeleli ngaphuma ngize esiswini sikamami ngiyobuyela ngenjani ngize. So before the Israel nation was founded, God prepared a land he called Canaan for them to worship him there. Way back in Genesis 12 verse 7, ekhuluma no-Abraham, and in Exodus 6 verse 8. Way back then, he identified a land from them, and they were not yet a nation. They were still a nation in his mind, but he prepared everything. So God prepares in advance. That's what we're saying. And we continue and say, before Israel left Egypt for Canaan, God softened the Egyptians' hearts, making them vulnerable to the kind of quote-unquote loot aimed at his worship. God, more from Exodus 12 verse 36, God made the Israelites the Egyptians to give generously to his people. What were they giving generously? The material that the children of God were going to use in worshiping their God. Before they left, everything was prepared for them. That's the sanctuary message, my friends. So we do not have we have noted here a consistent principle so far with God, that he would not require of you that which he has not provided. Before he says, worship me, he gives you the things with which you should worship him. So you have no excuse. None. You tell me if you have an excuse. I mean, I don't see an excuse here. God has provided everything for you to worship him. All what you need to do is now just worship him. So to enjoy all of these things, the Lord did not expect his people to sweat, work so hard, but just to believe in him. You see, I have a son, my son. Yes, I love him so much. That boy, before everything was planned for him. I was looking forward to him. So the first day, it was a day of adventure. I was taking him on an adventure, and he was enjoying going on an adventure with me, discovering who this man who calls himself Daddy to me, who is he and what is he doing? That's what God is doing with us, dear friends. I like E.G. Hammond when she says, God established the sacrificial system so that believers could enter into a close relationship with him. Purpose. Relationship. Not salvation. A relationship with him. Asibele kwi-BibleTraining.com abathi the sacrifices were not made to save, but as a means of maintaining a fellowship with the Holy God. So don't look at the sacrifices there and say this was a means of saving the people. No. Way back in Genesis 3:15, the proto-evangelium, we call that verse proto-evangelium. That means the first gospel, first ever gospel. Proto means first. Evangelium means gospel. What we see there, God did not say, I will institute a sacrifice through which you will be saved. He said, no, I put enmity between your seed, snake, and your seed, woman. It's God who declared. And he said, her seed will crush your head, serpent, and you, serpent, you will only bruise his heel. He declared it. He put it clean, right in front there. So it wasn't all about sacrifices, people. No, it wasn't. Sacrifices are only there for a relationship with this God, maintaining and servicing this relationship. That's all they do. We'll explore this thought a little further in this study for today, and I'm hoping to exhaust it. Let's continue in the meantime. From the evidence thus given, we think it is safe to conclude that the tabernacle was not about salvation, but about fellowship. So once you miss the fellowship part of the tabernacle, then you have missed the tabernacle altogether. We will see as we look at the services that are happening there. We'll look at the daily today. People say, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. Manghamba nabantu abanesimilo esixekayo, then you know exactly what kind of a person I am. So, but look at this God who is holy, who is, I'm failing even to describe him. He is seeking for a relationship with a fallen human being. What manner of love is that? A cast out. God seeks a relationship with him. And that you only find in the tabernacle. Your way, O God, is in the sanctuary. So we think God wanted to change this idiom, this expression, and saying, change it completely by when he called us to be holy as he is holy. So we contend then, therefore, that the tabernacle and its services were not meant to save us, but were meant to associate us with the divine God, holy and true. So that we also need to be, what a beautiful thing. We'd be floating with God and enjoying this adventure with God if we are holy as he is. Remember, we'll never match his holiness, but at our level, he wants us to be holy. And he determines the level at which we need to operate, not us. I am holy at my own. No, not that way. So this was affected through the offerings and sacrifices, which we are going to talk about very shortly. But before then, let's go back to E.G. Hammond, who says, I'm quoting, talking about the offerings as detailed in Leviticus 1 to 7. They were to remind the giver, that is us, that in the end, everything that we are and all that we have belong to God. Did she say they were to remind us that it is God, it is through these that we are being saved? No. But they remind us that everything that we are and we have, they belong to God. Even ourselves belong to God. iBibletraining.com ithi siyavumelana mayisho kanje ithi these sacrifices were designed to ensure personal dedication and complete surrender to God. Did I say anything about salvation so far? No. So, it's about fellowship. Let them build me a sanctuary so that I may dwell among them. Social being. God wants to socialize with us, fallen as we are, but wants to bring us up to his level. So the purpose of a fine, if you get a speeding fine in there, what is the purpose? The purpose is simply to restore a broken relationship. Nothing more than that. So these offerings then, they worked the same way. They worked the same way to restore a broken relationship. It's all about relationship here, not about salvation issues. Salvation belongs to God and God alone. That is his domain. Let's take another analogy from the Garden of Eden again. We say, from the Garden of Eden, God did not say that a sacrifice will save humanity, but he stated clearly that the woman's seed will crush the head of the serpent. Clear, cut and dry. So, men, on the other hand, had to accept that promised victory over the serpent by following all the dictates of God with regard to the fulfillment of this promise. When he says, now, this promise, I will fulfill it, but your part is to offer a lamb without blemish every time. You don't say, no, I'm going to bring in cabbages here and pawpaws and bananas because that's what I have. No, you don't amend it. It's not yours, it is God's. Michael Jeffrey, I think he's adding a spoiler here. I'm taking it from a Journal of Translation, Volume 3, Number 1 of 2007, on page 9, where he says, an unresolved tension brewed between God and his creatures here. The rebellion of man against the holy God. That's the thing that came up here. That was a spoil. God has done all of that. He has come up with a way of escape. He has come up and has told man, this is how I want you to cooperate with me as I am saving you. Umuntu sebona usindiswa yilemvu. Hayi man, awukwazi ukusindiswa yimvu. Awukwazi ukusindisa. No, usindiswa uNkulunkulu kuphela. So we agree with him, Michael Jeffrey, uma ethi, why do we agree with him? What looking at the case of Cain. nangu eqeda ukutshelwa ukuthi bathi molethe iwundlu njalo letha isilwane kumele kuchitheke igazi eseletha amhlabishi nopopo nobanana. Broken, you say, rebellion against God. God should also accept me for who I am. Who are you? It should be remembered that we have said that the solution to man's rebellion was not with man, but with God. Hence, God had to come up with the terms. Man could not save himself, neither can he now. So, man relied completely on God and still relies completely on God even today to come up with a plan to save him. uJeffrey aqhubeka athi, the tension is resolved as Yahweh, ukhumbuleke uJeffrey is a Jew, ne? Is resolved as Yahweh provides a way for the people to be holy and to enjoy a relationship with him. And that way, at its heart, is the system of sacrifices. Deep down in that way, secret of system of sacrifices that we look at there is a way of restoring a relationship. So choosing rebellion and ignorance to God's provisions does not help but aggravates the situation, my friends. Now let's look at the offerings. Yes. The psalmist says in Psalm 77, verses 13 to 15, thy way, O God, is in the sanctuary. Who is so great a God as our God? Though thou art the God that doest wonders. Thou hast declared thy strength among the peoples. Thou hast within thine arm redeemed thy people, the sons of Jacob and Joseph. Selah. We don't pronounce this one, by the way. So, I said we are now going to have a look at the offerings and sacrifices as stipulated by God in the book of Leviticus. Kindly note closely. I would like you to identify for me anyone that was offered to save an individual or a nation. As we are going to look at that table, I would like you to identify for me if kukhona eyodwa isacrifice noma eyodwa offering that was meant to save an individual or to save a nation. There we go now. We're looking at Leviticus 1, chapter 1 of Leviticus, chapter 6, verses 8 to 13. That's where you read about the burnt offering. So, what was involved here? A bull, a ram, a male goat, male dove, or a young pigeon without blemish. All of this was involved. I was saying, as we look at this, that ram, that bull, male goat, male dove, young pigeon without blemish, all of that. So this was always male animals here in the burnt offering. Always what? Male animals. But species of animal varied according to individuals' economic status. I highlighted that one. Was it to save anyone? No, it was umnikelo. So this was voluntary, and it signifies the propitiation for sin and complete surrender devotion. That propitiation, it means you were acknowledging the sin. Not that it was taking away the sin from you. No. Only God can do that. But it was an acknowledgement that you did commit that sin. And you were surrendering to God. That means you were devoted to God. You were committed to God. That's what it meant. I know, Sokoka Masishani, I know you are rushing to talk, to challenge me there. Then, next one there is Leviticus 2 and Leviticus 6, verses 14 to 23, where you read about the grain offering, also called the meal or tribute offering. That's what it was called. All right? Kusetshenziswe ini laphana uflour, isenkwa, okanye any grain made with oil, olive oil, and salt. So this had always to be unleavened. Ayingafuneki yeast lapha. And this should not increase in size. And this was also voluntary. And it signifies thanksgiving for first fruits. Lesikhathi nithola inasingane nivuna bese ke senthatha leya ngonyana nibusisa uNkulunkulu ngayo. Angazi noma senibonile eyayisindisa abantu. Angayiboni mina besindisa abantu so far. Ake size kuleya sin offering. Ngoba ikuyavela nalapha eqaleni leya sin offering. Ake size nayo ke. Kafushane. Mawubhekisisa le sin offering, Leviticus 4 now. Yamonsi mayiqeda chapter 3. Sesu chapter 4. Nangu chapter 3 la ivela khona. But chapter 4, verses 1 to 5, meaning from verse 1 up to chapter 5, verse 13. Also chapter 6, verses 24 to 30, and also on chapter 12, verses 6 to 8 of Leviticus. Incwadi yabaLevi yonke le. Mothi Leviticus phela abaLevi bona babephathelene nokukhonza etempelini. So it became important that way. Nalapha, it had to be a male or a female animal without blemish. Kanje, it should be a bull for the high priest and congregation. Multiple congregation, sure, the nation of Israel. Then a male goat for a king, a female goat or a lamb for common persons like Ukumar, a dove or a pigeon for slightly poor, and a tenth of an ephah of flour for the very, very poor individual. Acapune nje flour ongangesandla awuthele esandleni. Now, lo flour uzokwazi ukususa isona. I'm sure uyayibona lento engikhuluma ngayo. You can't say uflour uzosusa isona. But it was for sin. And this was mandatory. See, it was made by one who had sinned unintentionally or was unclean in order to attain purification. That was just giving you those summaries. This is a quick guilt offering. You are guilty of something. So ichaza next week in the guilt. Guilt and sin ukuthi ehlukana kanjani. So chaza next week. So that is Leviticus 5 number verses. Here a ram or a lamb without blemish. And this was also mandatory. It was made by a person who had either deprived another of his rights or had desecrated something holy. Uma udabula iBhayibheli kubeka ngolimi lwanamhlanje, then you have to do a guilt offering. Okanye unqabele umbelasi ukuthi akhulume, then deprive amalungelo akhe ukukhuluma, then guilt offering. Sedluleke. Then i-peace offering yayibizwa futhi amanye amagama kuthiwa i-fellowship offering. Yayihlukene kathathu, ukubonga kube wesifungo bese kuba wesipho nje, free will, upanye ngenhliziyo yakho ekhululekile. uLeviticus 3 ke loyo ke, right? No, Leviticus 7. So any animal here without blemish worked, right? Species of animal varied according to the individual's economic status. Noma ke ucebileke kodwa wongeke unikele ngenkunzi, because inkunzi was reserved for umpristi, a nation. So voluntary, it was a voluntary sacrifice. It symbolized fellowship with God. It signifies thankfulness for specific blessings, offering a ritual expression of a vow. Othi mayinkulunkulu eke wangipha umsebenzi, wangithwalela promotion, ngiyokwenza u-A no B no C, ebese siwenza le vow of offering. Kambe ngakho singasatholi nama promotions esiwadinga njengoba asayikhumbuli indaba yale vow offering. It also symbolizes general thankfulness. It was to be brought to one of the 3 required religious services. So khuluma ngawo as time goes on. Sisabhizi nesizathu sokuthi why kumele le ndawo. Siyabona now uma singakhulumi ngeTabernacle, then asizoba naso nesizathu sokwazi lama religious services ngokubaluleka kwawo. Imapha aphelele esiphambanweni, imapha angaphelelanga esiphambanweni. We will not be able to argue as such in that way. All right? I'm taking the last chapter in this one. Nikhumbule bese siyakhuluma ngeburnt offering, umnikelo wokushiswa ngithi okuthiwa yi-olah. All right? Purpose yayo, it was to propitiate for sin in general. Propitiate, you see, is to acknowledge the incident as having taken place and being responsible for it. So when Christ is our propitiation for sin, that means he acknowledges the guilt of sin that we have committed, and he's saying he is taking a full responsibility to eradicate it on our behalf. But the propitiation itself, the animal, did not remove the sin. It was acknowledging guilt. Now we can call the propitiation so much. So it means it was a means of approaching a holy by an unholy people to God. Ukuze sikwazi ukusondela kuNkulunkulu ongcwele, we needed the burnt offering. So a male unblemished according to one's wealth. God's portion, what did God get there? The entire animal was dedicated to God. You get wena umpristi akadli lutho, akathathi lutho umpristi la. And wena umuntu onikelayo awutholi lutho futhi. The entire animal was God's. Not ngoba uNkulunkulu eyidla. No. But wayefundisa thina ukuthi no, phela uthe lokhu u-acknowledge isono. Awukwazi ukuphinde usigcine sikuwena isono sakho. Busilethelane kumina otherwise. All right? Sin offering. Hawatat. This was to atone for specific transgressions where no restitution was possible. Umpristi victim la kwabani umpristi noma congregation kumele kube yini ibullock for irula kumele kube yini impongo goat. For a commoner kumele kube imbuzikazi a she goat. Engifundisile phela umvelase last week. So i-portion kaNkulunkulu kwakuba yini la amanoni 30 portions. Umpristi wayithola yini yena the remainder of this animal edliwa umpristi naye umele ayidle in the courtyard, in the court of the tabernacle, lapha kwi-first apartment omele ayidlele khona. Wena okade unikela awutholi lutho from that. Then bese kuba a trespass offering. A trespass offering, it was a legal satisfaction. Must it legal satisfaction that because ukuthi yes ukwenzile ukuze kwaneliseke umthetho. All right? The victim kwakuba yiram. The victim kwakuba yiram kuphela. uNkulunkulu amanoni wonke wakhe. Umpristi the rest kumele ayidlele. Then wena awutholi lutho. Peace offering shalom bizothiwa fellowship with God, communion meal, isidlo lesi siba naso enkonzweni, divided into 3 different types: the thank, the votive, and the free will. Bese sichazile. The victim, unblemished male or female, ox, sheep, or goat, according to ama ranks umkhumbule. Iportion kaNkulunkulu amanoni. Right? And umpristi yena mayathole ithungu lezo avumele aziwave in the holy place. Athole ibreast, isifuba. Isifuba sona sasithola umpristi omkhulu kuphela. And then heave offering, right, for leg yaya kumpristi officiatayo ethola leyo nto. Wena ke onikelayo wawuthola nawe ingcenyana la uyidle on the same day in the courtyard. Same day in the courtyard kumele udle le animal or le offering obuze nayo, a peace offering. Now as far as the thanks offering, nayo ye fellowship, nayo victim by unblemished male or whatever, safanana na uNkulunkulu, safanana futhi nalaphayana, nawe futhi udlela khona lapha. So you only benefit from the peace and the thanks offering, and no votive offering, no free will offering. That's where you are benefiting. Wena ozonikela. I think I've categorized all the offerings and covered them now. Angazi noma uyibonile yini wena ke umnikelo owususa isono. Asedluleke singadali lapho isikhathi eside. When it comes to sacrifices, almost every Bible student remembers out of a Sunday the great sacrifice that was supposed to be made by Abraham through Isaac, his promised son. So we do not entirely agree with everybody there. Sonke sokumele masinikela ngamadodana ethu amazibulu noma kuphela kwayo. We don't agree. No. Now, why do we say we don't agree with that account? One, God did not require his people to offer to him human sacrifices on a day-to-day basis. No. Kwenzeka lokhu ku-Abrahama naye once kuphela phindanga kwenzeka. So, we can't be saying we're now copying a lesson. God is requiring us to give all our firstborns to him by means of sacrificing them, human sacrifice lamb. No. You're understanding it, God cannot say we should not cause our sons and daughters to be passed through fire or when babe sacrificed in that way. Selindele ukuthi thina qobo lwethu sesonikela ingane zethu sinikela kuyena. By way of a sacrifice, as you see this side. We don't believe that is the same God. Not unless you don't know the God I'm worshiping. No. So, what we notice in the sacrifices that God is that God accommodated each one at his level of affordability, such that others were allowed to sacrifice with flour and birds. So we don't believe ukuthi samsogumela ku-Abraham kwakutest u-Abraham and kwenzeke ku-Abraham kuphela. U-Isaka akathestwanga kanjalo. uDavid akathestwanga kanjalo. Baningi singababala. Even uSamuel akathestwanga kanjalo. So we need to understand. We think then that the same God will not do to everyone what he did to Abraham. Uma uNkulunkulu ekwazi ukusi-accommodate ngokwe-level of affordability yethu, then how come ungakwazi ukubona ukuthi uNkulunkulu can not expect from you what Khumalo can afford? We like E.G. White here. Patriarchs and Prophets is a book. Uma ethi, it was to impress Abraham's mind, or it was to impress in Abraham's mind with the reality of the gospel, as well as to test his faith that God accommodated, or that God commanded him to slay his son. Following through on God's command, Abraham showed that God was more important to him than anything else, even more important than the son that he gave him. God was important. That was a test for Abraham. That is on page 154. Gold Hammond says amqaphuna before, uthi yena, Abraham understood two essential principles. First principle I understand is that no one but God himself can bring true sacrifice and the means of salvation. Angiphinde leyo. No one but God himself can bring true sacrifice and the means of salvation. It is the Lord who will and who must provide for that. When it comes to salvation, there is nothing we can do to offer to God for our salvation. It is only what God provides for our salvation. Not the bulls, not the sheep, the goat, the whatever, the flower, the birds. No, they cannot provide for our salvation. It's only God who can do that. So, aqhubeka uHammond athi, Abraham eternalizes this principle by naming the place Yahweh Jireh, meaning the Lord will provide. This further impresses in our minds the fact that no blood of any goat, any sheep, or bull could ever save any human being, but the provisions of God only. We like Hammond's second point here on this matter, as she says, the actual sacrifice is substitutional. The actual sacrifice, as wena unikela ngalemvu, akusiyona lemvu ezohlangula isono sakho. It's a substitute. God will substitute this sheep for the real one that can take away your sin. Ngichaza le ndawo ukuthi is substitutional. One that saves Isaac's life. The ram is offered in the place of Isaac. That's substitutional. So without any doubt in our minds then, that animal which God provided prefigured the Lamb of God which takes away the sin of the world, that is Jesus Christ, on whom the Lord has laid the iniquity of us all. Isaiah 53 verse 6 and 7. This way, friends, all these sheep, goats, and bulls clearly did not save any person then. They cannot save any person now and ever. They only served to restore God's people back into a fellowship with their Creator on condition of them, the people, obeying all the divine injunctions. You have to take God at His words here. There is no nationalism here. Ungabufaka ubu-Afrika here. Ungabufaka ubuZulu here. There's no tribalism here. There is either no denominationalism here. Ungathi according to Wesleyans, or according to Adventists, or according to Zionists. No. Akungeni konke lapho la. This is just a provision of God, and the provision of God alone. So this was a fact. This was a fact then, the matter before, the during, and will be ever, even post the Tabernacle studies when we've finished them. This is the truth. Nothing beyond this. Sengiyaqeda ihlobo zami. Sengiyaqeda sele just one slide now. Hammond, let's go back to Hammond. Hammond, we are taking here now, making a very striking observation here. Uti, a reason why God forbade the Israelites from eating blood, she says, it was in a passage where God restricted Israelites not to eat any blood. He provides an interesting reason for this prohibition. Kusho Hammond, not me. Uti, blood stands for life. And God has made sacrificial blood a ransom payment for human life. So it's one life represented by the blood, and the other life, the ransom life, represented that substitutes. So we cannot provide our own ransom. It is God who must give it, not you. So the principle of substitution, which became explicit on Mount Moriah where Abraham offered the blood of the ram in the place of the blood of his son Isaac is firmly anchored in God's legal requirements for ancient Israelites here. Buzoyifunda kuphi lento unless we're looking at the sanctuary services. So I wish I had all the more compelling reasons why the study of the sanctuary and the atonement is not just important, but a very crucial one. This indeed is about the science of salvation. Friends, this is all I've prepared for today. Next week, I promise, starting next week, we'll look at the holy versus the not so holy. And we shall also argue that holiness is a relationship that must exist between the divine and the human.